it's very simple to see how that swings. Get it swinging. D. Okay, so there's that. You got the little walk down, right? Very simple. Okay, now I'm going to show you the same pattern, the same timing and everything, but I'm going to show you how to do it in a little more rock way. You know, there's an old saying, the blues had a baby and they called it rock and roll. Buddy Waters said that. When you take the blues and you up-tempo it, and you get a little more attitude, you get rock and roll. That's what it is. The blues is the roots, and the rest is the fruits. So here we go from, I'm going to utilize that little claw thing I showed you. So, because if you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, okay, it's a 3 chord. So I always tell my students, you can do this. Ha ha ha! And you're a blues player, right? Well, not quite. But more on that later. So what I'm going to do is the same pattern I just did, utilizing these closed chords, and you'll see how it sounds a little bit of a Rolling Stones sound to it. You'll see where that came from. So we're doing the same. It's a nice easy pattern, right? Moving along. Now we're going to the 4 chord. Same pattern. A minor 7th form. Now to our 5 chord with our open D. Got that? The 4 chord. A 4, A sharp, B. Okay? So you'll see how all these work. You notice I use that low string. Now, when I mentioned the Rolling Stones, it turns out that one of the stories is that Ry Cooder actually recorded with the Rolling Stones back in '69 a song called Memo from Turner. And at that time, Keith wasn't really using the G string, the G tuning much, and he kind of picked it up from Ry. And after that, you heard stuff like, we know what that is, right? I didn't play long enough to get in trouble, though. But the point is, that's all G tuning. A lot of people don't know that. So when they hear the Rolling Stones, they go, well, how does he get that sound? How does he get that bending steel girders with his rhythm playing, right? A lot of it has to do with the G tuning. And so back to our acoustic blues, what I'm going to do now for you is I'm going to play the same thing I just played, okay? But I'm going to utilize both the closed chords and the open chords. So the kind of early folk blues stuff mixed with a little rock attitude, and you'll see where it all goes. And then I'm going to put in a few little licks in there along the way, and you can watch what I do and kind of pick up on my licks. I'm not going to tear down each lick because, frankly, I do it different every time. You know, it's an improv thing. So, but you'll get the idea of where you can go with this kind of stuff, okay? So there'll be a tiny vocabulary of licks that I'll utilize within this movement, okay? So we'll start out real easy and simple, kind of a folksy blues, and then I'll get a little rougher with it, a little more rock and roll with it as we go. So check this out. So that's how you go from folk blues to funky blues right into rock and roll and G tuning. And I think it's a really fun one. You can get real free with it, like a lick like this. It's kind of an impressive little lick. Basically all you're doing is taking your third finger here on the third fret, and you're just, because of the G tuning, you're getting that salty kind of little country in there, but you bend the notes. That's all the attitude stuff you can do in there. But most importantly is that you're enjoying the fullness of an open chord, and it frees you up. You can climb. So you're basically utilizing the G and the B string. You can experiment by yourself on this. Try different patterns. Because with all the stuff I'm showing you, ultimately I want you to find your own way, find your own voice, okay? So whatever you can do with this stuff, play with it, you know, and really kind of experiment. That's what I do. Every time I do G tuning, I come up with something different. And sometimes, you know, you can do patterns like, I was talking to Claude earlier about a pattern I think is a super funky Stonesy lick. And all he's doing is playing like an E minor shape against the G tuning. So try different things. You can also, when you do your bar chord and you're adding your sus chord, you can play with this. Get that great, you know what that is. My favorite flavor, cherry red. So if any of you guys are fans of early blues, Rolling Stones, that kind of stuff, G tuning will really help you out a lot and get you going on that, okay? We're still in G tuning, and I'm gonna show you something I've kept in my back pocket for a few years. It's a great little device we use. We're gonna take the low E string, and we're gonna drop it all the way down to C. There it is, very low. And the reason I'm going to do this is because everything else is in open G tuning. So you remember our G tuning, okay? So rather than having the low E and D, which is where normal G tuning is, when you drop it down to a C, as I'm about to show you, you get a whole different voicing going on. It's very cool. When you go to your 4 chord, you've got this huge low C. And I'll explore this later on in electric as well, because you put a little tremolo on it, it gets really creepy and great. But this song I'm going to show you is I'm going to go back to fingerpicking for a moment. And this is a song I recently wrote called Stumbling into Ecstasy. And this one, it starts out on the G root, okay? You've got your A string down to G, so you're okay there for your G root. So we do the same finger picking pattern we've been working with, which is, remember that? I'm not going to go over that because we've got that one already. So we start out here, we're leading out with our G string, right? Just doing a regular Travis picking. Okay, and I'm going to go to our 4 chord in a second here. And when I do go to that 4 chord, I'm going to utilize that big fat C at the bottom. And you'll hear how cool it sounds. Here we go, ready? C. There's that A minor 7th pattern again, right? On the left hand. But you get that low C, and then back to G. No hands. Now we're going to go to a 5 chord. It's a little bit different. You got to go to the F sharp with your 3rd finger, right? Because you've got your C down there. So you go to your F sharp and a D pattern, just like we did on that very first song. Make My Way. And then we're going to go to the 4 chord, your open C, with your A7th pattern here, and back to your G. Once again to the 4 chord. I'm going to play a little melody for you. Back to the 1, it's your G chord. Simple pattern. Back to the C. There's your 4 chord. Back to your G. Little harmonics in there. Here's your D. C. G. And I'll do a little move here. Back to G. Now I'm going to go to chorus. Stay in the 1. 4, 1. 4, 1. 5. That's your D chord. Back to your 4 chord. To your 1. There's your 5 chord. Now we're going to do a little climb here. Back to your G. Verse, 4 chord. Back to the G. C. Five chord. C, G. Okay, now I'm going to show you a little bridge here. You ready? Fourth fret, pinky and 3rd finger, half a step up. Make that low C. Stumbling into ecstasy. It's that easy. There you go. Okay, right now we're going to heat things up a little bit. We're still in the key of E, or sorry, still in the key of G, and we're still utilizing that low C on the E string. Okay, and we just finished stumbling into ecstasy. Okay, now I'm going to give you a sort of a little bit of rockabilly workout here. This is for the more advanced players out there. So we're basically doing the same format we were doing, but I'm going to speed things up a little bit and put in some, we'll go into hyperdrive, okay? So I'm going to show you some pretty fancy licks here. So stay with me, buckle your seatbelts, and get ready. The rhythm is kind of, I do sort of what I call a mama daddy beat. There's your rhythm, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my thumb going, and I'm going to show you a couple of series of licks that will work anytime in G. And this one is one of my favorite rockabilly licks. You get your low G note in there, and it goes. And what's happening here is I'm doing a lick that you could do in a normal tuning, but when you do it in G tuning, it gets a little more twang, a little more spicy. So I'm going to do it in slow motion for you because we're going to be doing it in the 1, the 4, and the 5 position, and it works throughout. So in slow motion, you get your low G here, that kind of hangs in there, and you start out with a hammer-on. So in slow motion. And then we go to C. And back to G. And then you go to D, same thing. C. Now that's the basic lick, okay? You can do variations thereof. But when you hear it up to speed, it sounds a little bit different. So if you're in a rhythm like what we were just doing, it sounds like this. Yeehaw! So that's kind of how it goes. I'm going to take it a little bit slower for you. And so you start out with a rhythm just to... C, same pattern we just did. That's G. D, C, G. So that's your intro, and here's your lick.